Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great day today, is it not? My name is Mark Twain. It is ironic that you would say that, in that only moments ago while I was in the hallway, I often get that question, are you the colonel? No, I am not the colonel. He is in the chicken business. I am in the book business. I have been invited here this afternoon by a fine young man. He goes by the title of Vice President for Technology. Did I say he was a fine young man? All right. I always like these side conversations that get to going. And well, I must say that I don't know much about technology, just a little. But now I do know a thing or two about presidents and vice presidents, for I do love the topic of politics and would love to spend the afternoon in a candid conversation with all of you fine folks. However, that is not why I'm here this afternoon. It is my understanding that you folks are about to embark on an exciting adventure. And if any of you have read any of my books in the last 20 years or more, that I do love an adventure. Now, if again, it's my understanding that it's been explained to me that you're about to implement something called an AIS. Now, I have no clue what AIS stands for. However, if I was to speculate a guess, I would say it stands for absolutely interesting stuff. It must be true, for you fine folks here today at Pasadena City College have taken the time out of your very busy schedule to come here this afternoon and actually have someone explain it to you. I wish to ask by a show of hands, how many in here have been at this institution for more than 25 years? It's okay, I won't call on you. My eyesight has been failing lately, but I only saw about 3 hands. I think there's some few that may not be totally public today. Well, it just so happens that your current AIS, affectionately known as the Santa Rosa system, have you heard of it? It's actually been in place for over 25 years. In fact, nearly 30 years. A bona fide antique. Oh, please understand, for those that raised your hand, I was not referring to you at all. I was actually referring to the Santa Rosa system. So, with that said, I certainly commend you for taking the time to come here this afternoon, and I commend the institution for making a decision about moving forward, replacing this bona fide antique. And so it is with great pleasure this afternoon that I wish to introduce your partners in this great adventure, Illusion. These fine folks are going to spend a little bit of time this afternoon showing you how this adventure is going to go and a lot of the exciting things you're going to see along the way. So, without further delay, I wish to say, Banner Days are here. Thank you all very much, and it's been an honor to visit you this afternoon.
Tough act to follow. Yeah, we spare no expense here at Ellucian. We even raised the dead, so not a problem. My name's Rick Lagoza. I'm with Ellucian. Been with the company for 32 years now, and in higher education before that for 11 years. And you can do the math. Yeah, you know how old I am. I'm going to have our folks introduce themselves quickly, and then we'll get started. And I guess, Xavier, we'll start with you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Xavier Rubio. I'm the Regional Delivery Director, and I'll be here to support the project team. We put a lot of our best folks on this team, and we all look forward to working with all of them.
My name is Rowan Garcia. I'll be the technical architect for this project. I'll be helping out with our functional folks and also your IT department.
I'm Molly Delgado, and I am the financial aid consultant.
I'm Antonio Trebozowski, and I'll quiz you how to spell that later. And I'll be working with the student area.
My name is Mickey Hughes. I'm here to work with you in the finance area.
I'm Ted Foss. I'm your project manager, resident project manager. I started living with you on the 10th of September, and I will be going away sometime toward the end of December of 2013. Those of you who want to ever visit me, I'm in the ITS library building, room 145.
And I'm Wendy Davis. I'll be doing the presentation today.
So a little bit about our system, a little bit about us, I guess. The name Ellucian may be new to a lot of people. We used to be called SunGuard. And just so you know, we've got about 2,300 clients in higher education around the world. We've got 13 million students we support each year, each term, with our products. Probably a key number is that last number, the 82%. 82% of the California community colleges use our software already. Of all the community colleges, 37% use the actual banner suite that you'll be implementing here. And that's a list of the clients. If you're thinking of taking notes, don't worry. We're going to post all of these slides out on the website, the project website, so you have access to those and actually the video as well. So if you got friends at some of those sites, you might want to check with them. You're headed down the same road of banner implementation. So what's Banner? Banner is basically, first of all, a way to get into information system. You can get into either a smartphone, a tablet, like an iPad that we're giving away, or your laptop. You can work from the office, you can work from home, it doesn't really matter. And it goes against something called the Luminous Portal. And that's kind of the communication hub for everybody within the institution. Then lastly, we have a totally integrated system of student system, finance, financial aid, human resources, finance, and advancement. One database, one place that captures things like addresses, phone numbers, one place that captures things like accounts receivable, student information, no duplicate data entry. And I guess that's the important thing. There's some applications that we'll be implementing that cross all areas of the institution. For example, the portal, obviously. The portal's smart enough to know that if you're a student, you get access to lots of student support services. But if you happen to be a student who is also an employee, there's also information about employment at the institution, benefits at the institution, things like that. An integrated document management system that takes everything, not just, we talk about data all the time and information in Banner, but also does images, integrates those images with students or accounts receivable or entities within the system. Also, it's not limited to images, also audio clips, video clips are part of the document management system. Sadly, in the last few years, we've had to worry about emergency communication. We're implementing Rave Alert, which will allow us, the institution, to send notices about dangerous conditions on campus. Should there ever, hopefully, knock on wood, we'll never get a chance to use that. Although that same application can be used for other less dangerous things. Workflow. We'll hear a lot about workflow. In fact, when Wendy starts doing the actual demo, you'll hear about tying processes together. So rather than having students walk all over campus trying to get things done, rather than faculty having to walk from office to office to solve problems, we can tie processes together through a workflow. It doesn't even have to be a Banner event. It can be other events outside of Banner. So things in your library system, things in your bookstore system can be workflowed together. And we'll show some examples of that. Mobile connection. It's an open source set of tools that what's nice about the mobile connections, it allows institutions to develop, and it's any institution, to develop mobile applications for higher education, and then they share them. We don't sell the mobile connection toolkit. We give it away to anyone, including non-clients, and they can build mobile applications. The only thing we ask is that you post those applications in a community area where other institutions can share them. We're finding some interesting solutions, things that we've never thought about because we're not in front of students, we're not in front of faculty every day. People who are in front of faculty and students and staff every day come up with interesting solutions, and they share them with everybody else. So it was a great experiment for us. It's truly a successful experiment for our company. You know, we'll do some other things in that same area. Self-service reporting and database ODS, or Operational Data Store, is the ability for everyone to get information out of the system. One of the things we discovered during the demo process, and even prior to that in talking to folks, people are frustrated that information's in the system, they can't get it out, or they have to ask a specialist to get the information out. The self-service reporting capabilities of the system allows you to actually drag and drop information, create reports, and yes, it's got security, so if you can't see payroll across the board, you won't see payroll through the self-service reporting. If you can't see students' grades, because that's not part of your job, you can't see them through the reporting side as well. So then, more specifically, student areas, and I'll have Antonio talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so just also a little bit more about myself. I am very pleased to say that I earned 2 AAs from Chaffey Community College and completed my ed goal and transferred to my 4-year institution. And I've worked in higher ed for 4 years, and I've been with Ellucian for 7 now. And I have pretty much been specialized to work with California community colleges. I've helped 4 or 5 community colleges through the full implementation and have assisted 7 or 8 others with various visits as they bring up other components of functionality. So I'd like to think I have a pretty good sense of the business needs of a California community college, but I'm always looking for those curveballs that especially faculty like to throw. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of components to the student area based from the schedule of classes and back to the master course file and things like that. But some of the nicer integrated elements are specifically related to faculty load. So we can take the data out of the schedule and port that data directly into HR, so there's really only one time of data entry. Also, whenever things are updated inside, like for instance the schedule of classes, it's real time with the web, so anyone who's perusing the schedule of classes online will automatically see those updates because it's all real time. Students will of course benefit from that tremendously. They'll also be able to view their bill online, their fees, and at the time that they're registering, if they've already completed their BOG information, they'll be able to see that BOG. It'll post to their account immediately. And if the student does changes in their registration, the BOG will also automatically adjust. So the system also has the ability to deal with the outreach areas and also processing the CCC apply applications. And there's a whole array of forms to help track the disabled students, EOP&S, Puente, Ujima, Mesa. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of others that are out there. So all of that's part of the integrated student area, and then pretty much the bulk of the students and faculty will be interacting with it through that web self-service component. It's only more of the administrative side who will be inside the database proper. Along with all of just what is part of the program for student, there's also a couple of additional pieces. So the relationship management tool, which Wendy will be showing bits of in just a little bit. But that's basically a communication device. It'll specifically facilitate communicating with at-risk students, but also has the capability to deal with outreach and those types of things. Also, DegreeWorks and its TREC component will be very we're looking for that to be a big win with you guys, because it's basically the ed plan. And students will be able to kind of do a mock-up of their own ed plan from the web. It'll have what-if scenarios, so if the student's thinking of swapping from one major to another, they can instantly pull it up and see how far along in their progress they have if they decide to change. Counselors will be able to store their own notes inside the ed plans, and those notes can be displayable to the student or just internal to other counselors. And also, based on the demand in the ed plans, that we can take that information and help us facilitate that into the scheduling, so that if we see we have 900 students who all need this course, we know we need to offer a few more sections of that class. So that's all led into the DegreeWorks and the TREC elements. And of course, there's also FSA Atlas, which it facilitates the tracking and capturing of all the special information needed for international students so that that can be reported cleanly to the federal governments. So those are the student elements that I'll be facilitating during the implementation. Now I'll pass it off to my colleague, Molly.
My name is Molly Delgado. I've been in financial aid over 42 years, all sorts of places. I graduated from Pierce College, so I'm also a community college person. Went to college at San Luis Obispo, and then I worked at UCLA, Cal Poly Pomona, and now with Aleutian. So with financial aid, we are going to be able to handle all of the federal regulations, all of the state regulations. We'll be able to deal with any institutional regulations, any of your foundation grants, your donor grants, departmental funds. Any money going to a student can be recorded in the financial aid module. We are fully accredited by the Department of Education to online calculate a student's contribution to their own education, and we can automatically send everything to the Department of Education in a matter of just running a job. And we can get back our reimbursements, millions of dollars, under direct loans, under Pell Grant, and any of the other funds that we distribute to our students. So everything is fully accredited, and we'll be able to keep those funds moving to and from the government to our students. We also are able to do private loans, the alternative loans, which is becoming more and more, I'm afraid, because students feel they need more money. We also have the ability to handle our entrance counseling for default prevention and the exit counseling for making sure a student really realizes they have a loan. Self-service is a big thing in financial aid. We'll be listing all of the documents on there that a student must submit, and we also will be able to allow them to accept and decline any of their funding, especially the loans. So we are going to be very busy to get this up as soon as we can, and we also will be supporting all of the BOG funds, the Cal Grant funds. Any money that goes to a student we'll be handling in financial aid.
And my name is Mickey Hughes. I'll be working with you with the college in the area of finance. Sorry. I meant to grab that when I walked up, Molly. Again, I'll be working with the finance office, the business office, and the areas that are behind the scenes. We're not exactly student-facing. We're more employee-facing and the vendor-facing. So as you can see from the list of the items here, I'm not going to go through each one. You'll have a copy of this on the web and can study this on your own. But we'll be working with the staff here, going over showing people how to establish the general ledger, how to establish and how to process the purchase requisitions that you're likely to do, and pretty much that's all of you in this room, unless you have someone helping you, an administrative assistant that's doing some of that work for you on your behalf. But things that you wish to purchase start out in Banner. We verify that the security that the person is accessing with, passwords, and do they have the right to be in this funding source, in this department, in this division, in this section? Do you have enough budget left over to go out and buy whatever it is you're getting ready to purchase? We verify all of that. From this will flow purchases of fixed assets. Occasionally what we want is not, you know, a pack of paper or a dozen pencils, but a fixed asset, a sizable item that the college is responsible for keeping track of, depreciating, and tracking, frankly, all through the life of that asset. We do receivables, quite a few other things there. Budget development, we'll be working with the fiscal office, as well as our human resource colleagues and your colleagues in the human resource area, setting up positions, developing positions. We have a position for this. This person is occupying that position. And from that development over on the HR side, that will flow into the budget development, so that we can, when we develop a budget, we know exactly what we have as far as our anticipated expenditures, as far as salaries, wages, fringe benefits, that type of thing. Finance self-service is a big piece of what we do, and that enables the phone calls to stop, a lot of the phone calls to stop. I'm not saying your phone will never ring again, but you'll be, the folks that are in finance or in the business office will be able to let you have access to the status of your order. Like, I ordered this stuff, where is it? You know, has it come in? Has there been an invoice processed? All of this stuff is available through the self-service module. And there's faculty effort reporting. Again, this is something we do in conjunction. We work very closely with the human resource people, because again, not just faculty effort reporting, which our grants are making more and more demands of us on. Just everyday salaries and wages get fed immediately, automatically, or as Molly says, automagically, from the payroll system over into finance. So I'm looking forward to this, and unlike my previous two colleagues, I did not receive my education in Florida, although much of the last 25 years in my career with this company I have spent working in Colorado, in California. I've spent once in Colorado, but California, and most particularly very recently with the California community colleges. So as they both said, we're somewhat especially suited, I think, for the California Community College effort.
Thanks, Mickey. I'm representing just the HR piece. That you have a great consultant assigned. Her name is Julie. She, along with the other team of consultants, they've all worked together on the California Community Colleges. And in the area of human resources, California is unique. You have unique regulations that are only indigenous to California, issues such as STRS and PERS. So Julie is well qualified to handle all of that, and really looks forward to working with you on that. Of course, things that will impact everyone in this room, the way that paychecks are disseminated, the way that time perhaps gets entered in the system, the way that you can view your benefits online. And this was passed around to everyone as you came into the room. The college has made a sizable capital investment in something called talent management. And what that is designed to do is coordinate the efforts of every single one of you in this room and make sure that you're getting the proper training that you need. That training can be in-person training, it can be online training, it can be a hybrid of that, creating employee transcripts, pushing out training so that you'll overtly know that that needs to occur. Also, a utility whereby your direct manager can do performance reviews. There can be 360-degree performance reviews. So really a very powerful system, and that probably will come up a little bit sooner, pardon me, than the payroll benefit system itself. So something for you all to look forward to, a pretty big investment by the college and you folks, the employees. That's you, Ted.
Hello again, everyone. As your project manager, and you can imagine having just looked at all the bullets on those slides, these systems talk to one another, and I don't even like to refer to them as systems. It is a system. It is basically a single database where all this information resides. So as we say, something that big don't move that fast. And you need a project manager, someone who can constantly keep an eye on the big picture to make sure that all of this happens in a reasonable amount of time and on budget. And that's what a project manager essentially does. But he does not do it in a vacuum. He or she does not do it in a vacuum. Every project of this size needs governance. It needs input from all of the different stakeholders in the college arena, whether you be staff or faculty or students or administration. And so in this particular case, the generic term for that might be called a steering committee or an implementation team. Here at PCC, this group is called the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee. And we've already met once, and we meet every Thursday for an hour, and we consider how the project is going to be run. We consider changes in procedure, to bring the college more up to date in the way things are done. Some of them are very hard decisions, but we do not work in a vacuum and we do not work unilaterally. This is not to be perceived as a vendor's product that's being implemented by information technology. It is your product, and the more that we work and the more that we get you involved, the more you're going to see how much of it is actually yours and not just a piece of software that's being run by IT. So somebody asked a pronunciation of this acronym, all right? I prefer to call it ATAC, but the one person that saw it another way called it ATTAC. But you can, I don't know if you can actually see, again, we keep reminding you, this is going to be out on your web. But you can see names up there already of people that you know and people that you work with that are serving on this committee. And so the governance, the way that this project is all run pretty much through the ATAC committee and the subgroups that will be working with them. There'll be groups for the scheduled classes, for the student area, finance area, all the areas that you saw bullets for will have some representative on the ATAC committee. There are just a few things that I would call your attention to so that you don't struggle reading this. Again, you can look at it in detail on the website, but the part of it that you probably can see are different colors. You see sort of a reddish color, a mustard color, you see a blue color, a green color, and a purple color. Those represent the different phases of the project, and you'll leave here knowing some certain key dates, which I'll tell you in a few minutes. Let's just say that the red boxes represent the beginning of the project, and that's where we do our research and fact-finding. Because if the one thing that you leave this room with, I want you to make sure that you do not think that implementing this system is at all like implementing Microsoft Office, okay, where you just download the product and you push run, and about 20 minutes later, you configure a few things, and you're going away and typing your letters or doing your spreadsheets. This is not Microsoft Project, right? It is an 18-month end-to-end project with most of the heavy lifting, most of the heavy stuff happening in the first 9 months. Okay, we started this project on the 10th of September, and roughly the 10th of May, a good portion of this system will be up and running. The student system will be up and running with prototype for summer and full-blown registration for fall. Financial aid system will be running. The DegreeWorks system will be running. And some reporting will also be running so that not only is there data in the system, but information at your desktops in the form of reports. So that represents a lot of purple boxes up there, okay? From the red boxes to the purple boxes for student, for financial aid, and a few of those other systems, basically 9 months. For finance, finance will go live July 1 of 2013. Human resources will go live at the end of December of 2013. You saw a little bit about relationship management. Wendy's going to do a demo of that. That, too, will be going live in the May timeframe. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and you can understand that the project timeline is going to be something that we have to pretty much stick to if we're going to be successful, and that's basically my job. So I'm going to skip over a lot of these slides because even though we do blow them up, they're still pretty much unreadable. But you do want to see, for instance, the fact in the student area. This is a lot of meat and potatoes right here. Registration for fall, when it's occurring, online degree audits, MIS reporting, retention and communication, online course catalog, CCC apply, and person information, all going live in early May. A lot of stuff. What happens in the meantime, besides the fact gathering and the configuration, which we will partner with you, we have to move a lot of information from your legacy systems over to the new system. So between the configuration, the data conversion, training you how to use the system, and all of that, that's all going to happen pretty much in this 9-month period. Okay, so fasten your seatbelts. And again, these slides are available to you, so I'm not going to belabor the whole timeline, but you know the critical dates. Keep your eyes on May of 2013, on July of 2013, and the end of December 2013. Now, Wendy is going to show you a little bit of the system or systems that we are implementing here, but not from the perspective of a salesperson, but from the perspective of either a faculty member, a staff member, or a student, or whatever relationship you have with the college. We call that day in the life.
Thanks, Ted. I have I think it's a funny story to share. I worked at an institution years ago where we went through a similar kind of process and, made a big buying decision and then implemented a solution. And it just made me remember this when Ted said the red boxes are about the fact finding, where consultants will come and they'll ask you about your business processes and perhaps how you wanted to do things differently and what would help you improve your job. Well, I worked in human resources a long time ago, and I remember the HR director came in and said, what would make your job better, easier? And I said, an electronic stapler. And he was like, really? And he meant like system things. I had no idea what he was talking about. And he's like, anything else? I'm like, if I could get one of those machines where you clock stuff in, you turn the paper, you clock it back out, that would help. And he was like, he didn't know what to say. So be thinking about these things that will make your life easier and think beyond the electronic stapler, right, as we go into this, because you'll see that Banner is much more than that. Again, my name is Wendy Davis. I happen to live in Utah, but I have spent a majority of my career here in the California community colleges. I've worked with Ted and Rick for years, and this is a big part of where my heart lies. My husband's actually a community college learner. There's only one community college in the state of Utah, which I know is shocking. We're only a state of 2.7 million people. So Salt Lake Community College is it. I also am a full-time learner at the University of Utah finishing my terminal degree. So I take classes. I happen to be a student who uses portals. I use the Canvas learning environment. That's what my professors put assignments. That's where I upload assignments. That's where I collaborate with folks in my class. So I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective as one who's not just a practitioner who is involved in helping develop and sell software, but also one who walks the walk and sits in class. In fact, my 14-year-old, she said, "You're missing class on Wednesday." And I'm like, "Uh-huh." She says, "What's your teacher going to say?" And I said, "Well, my teacher and I, we're both adults, and he knows that I have a real job and I actually have to work." So it's a little bit different. As you're going through the next several months, and Ted said, buckle up, it's going to be a ride. I want you to keep some of these images in your mind as what we're shooting for and the end game, okay? And I'm just giving you glimpses today. But when this is all said and done, and we flip the switch off of one system and we turn the switch on the other system, you will have a magnificent system that serves students, faculty, staff, alumni, all the constituencies at the college. Okay, so what we're taking a look at right here, I've just pulled up a page where a student might go to perform some common activities. This is the Luminous portal that Rick talked about. It's the gateway. You log in once with your user ID and password, and that unlocks all the different doors that you need. So this particular student, he happens to be an employee as well. So he has integrated employee features. He will come on this employee page to see how much work study he has left, be able to enter his timesheets, things like that. I've landed on course information. As a learner, I will tell you that I access the website at 3 key times during the term. Typically, when registration is open, I'm really heavily into it. Near the end when I'm looking for my grades, and then around midterm when I'm like, I really ought to be working on some of those assignments. No, I actually do access the online learning environment almost daily, just to pull documents down and download the syllabus and things like that. But these are common tools that your students will be able to access, things such as, registering online. They'll be able to track their own attendance. They'll be able to see historically how their courses have been, where they've performed in those particular courses. Additionally, they'll be able to access information about their financial aid. Molly talked about making students aware of things such as they are taking out loans, even though we tell them that they are. They'll be able to see very clearly here which financial aid requirements they have, if they need to submit a FAFSA, if they need to submit internal documents, what has been packaged and awarded, and what they can accept, and really empowering them to see that all online. We also have a newer feature in our system that I'm really excited about as a parent of 3 teenagers. Once they hit 18 and FERPA kicks in, I have no more control. It's kind of freakish. Like one day they're 17 and the next day they're 18, and it's just crazy. But there's a newer feature where your student can give proxy access to a parent or other trusted adult. And they can give them access to see their schedule, pay their bill, right? See certain bits and pieces of information about them. And then that can be negotiated between the learner and the parent. But we get that question a lot. Can I just log on and see my kids' grades? Can I log on and pay their bill? And until now, it's been very constrained. So now opening that up to include a greater community of other trusted adults who are really helping that student in their path to success in a course, matriculation, and completion. So a little bit about financial aid there as well. With respect to what does this look like for me as an employee, let me go ahead and I've switched users. I've just done a quick little Alt tab and switched users. And I'll click on this employee tab right here and get me a little bit more real estate. And here's an example of what your employee main web page might look like. The ability for you to see your benefits, Perhaps do open enrollment online. If there's a life change event, record that with the Human Resources Office. Submit your time online, whatever timekeeping system the college decides to settle on. To be able to look at an employee directory online, update your name and your address, all paperless and seamless. All of this going directly into the database of record, which is the Banner database. Additionally, it was mentioned that employees can also see their faculty workload, and we have a component for faculty contracts. Again, we work in tandem with the academic office and the human resources office, taking what your faculty workload is and the compensable elements of that, and then generate for you an electronic document for your contract. You can sign it electronically, prints it out in a paper format, and you have access to those records all online. So things that previously you might have had to rely on paper contracts for. I wanted to just give you a glimpse of the talent management system that I talked about, because I really do think this is so interesting, and I'm really excited that the college decided to invest in this. Every single one of you will have access to a page that looks something like this. And this is how you're able to manage the elements of your career. Put in your credentials so that you start to build a composite resume online. And as the college looks for other skill sets, managers and other people who need to hire, individuals with certain skill sets can go out here and search and say, is there somebody who happens to speak Bosnian and knows statistics? Because I don't know why you would need to know those two things combined. But maybe you have a brilliant Bosnian statistician coming, right? And you need something like that. Or do you have certain skills? I was at a community college last week, and the director of IT confided in me. He said, I can't get anyone who can write PL SQL. I just can't get them. I can't get them. And that really shocked me. And I just wondered if they had mined their internal resources to know if there were people who had those skills as well. So here, you're able to see what training has been assigned to you. That might be pushed down from HR. That might be pushed down from your manager. And that's probably not a good word, pushed down, but disseminated on your page as such. And here, this particular individual, Jen, she also happens to be a manager. So she can view information related to her team. And here she can see all of her direct reports, and some of them have reports under them. So if I were to click here, I would see more and more. And as I click on each one of these individuals, she's able to see, as a manager, the different things that need to happen in that employee's life cycle. Are there to-do actions that she as a manager needs to complete? Is her performance review overdue, right? Does anybody get performance reviews on time? And we probably shouldn't do that in a public forum. We probably shouldn't go there. But I've worked for a lot of organizations, and I know that can be an issue, right? Have I, as an employee, been able to communicate with my manager what my next steps are with regard to my career planning? So this is a really great investment. I'm really excited that the college has decided to invest in this. Also, the ability for, I mentioned this earlier, but to deploy learning, and whether those are packaged contents. So for example, there are vendors that sell sexual harassment training packets, people who work with students in NCAA compliance. This particular one is a unique how to deal with mental health and wellness of students and recognize that. All very important. So this kind of system, I think you folks will really, really enjoy. With respect to, let's see, faculty and some of the functions that faculty members perform, let me go ahead and click on that particular community here in faculty. And you'll see that those of you who are faculty members now have a lot of information that is aggregated in one nice place. So you'll have the ability to have a faculty dashboard and see all of the courses that you're teaching per term, right? And I've got several out here per term. I can click here and see my class list. I can click here and see the syllabus that I've uploaded, post my office hours, and be able to email my class with one single click. Huge, huge, hopefully improvement over what you may or may not have today. Additionally, as we talk about how to help students be successful, I hope that as you go through your project, you consider how to create a culture of student engagement that helps the individual learner, but from not just the faculty perspective, but also the staff perspective. So I'm of the firm opinion that every interaction that every student has with somebody at this college matters. It really does matter. I told the first session, I'll tell this story again because it's one that's near and dear to my heart. The institution where I attended as an undergrad, I happened to go to a four-year school and was privileged to live in some really fun dorms. And back in the 80s, when I would plan my classes, I would schedule everything around the soap opera All My Children, which started at 12 o'clock Central Time in Peoria, Illinois. And I'm trying to validate myself and justify this because there weren't VCRs in 1980, whatever that was, and there wasn't a DVR, there were no reruns, so if you missed it, you didn't see it, right? In fact, reruns weren't even common back then. I think I saw some Chips reruns in the summer, but that was really about it. And we didn't have televisions in our room. My kids don't even know how lucky they are, you know? I mean, my 16-year-old lost her cell phone for the third time in 3 months, and I told my husband, I said, we are not buying her another cell phone. And then it becomes, well, it's not about her, it's about me. So we went and we got her like a $30 cell phone at Walmart. She was so upset. How do you like your phone? Well, I can text and call. Uh-huh. I'm so sorry that you're abused. You don't have a smartphone. But it blows their minds that there were no televisions in the dorm room. There was one TV in the whole building. It was strapped to a wall with a chain, right? And there was a TV line. Anyway, every day at noon, I take my little lunch in there, and the lady who worked in my dorm room also loved All My Children. And for 4 years, we bonded over Adam Chandler and Erica Kane, and we became friends, you know, but that was our only interaction. I went back to my alma mater several years ago, and I saw her on campus. And I was like, you! And she was like, you! You know, and it mattered. It really mattered. And every interaction that we have matters, okay? I was so proud of her. She had worked there for over 30 years, and she was retiring, and I was really, really happy for her. Other relationships that matter, clearly, are the interactions that faculty have with their students, right? There's somebody that they engage with on a regular basis. There's someone that they respect. Students respect them as an authority, as a knowledge expert, come back to these faculty members to ask for letters of recommendation, perhaps for job references. So the faculty members know a lot about their learners. And one of the things that we've done is provided a mechanism for faculty not just to report things like attendance and grades, but also provide other feedback on that particular learner. And these are just some feedback items that we put in this particular instance of the database. But things that might matter, things that are financial, academic, social, emotional, right, as we're trying to help the learner succeed in this course. So I might be able to type in something here about this student's having a problem with daycare, and their daycare provider is no longer available, and they can't get to class on time because they have to drop their child off and then take the bus to campus. And that is an impediment to their ability to perhaps succeed in this course. And if they're having a problem with this, what might that impact with their ability to succeed in other courses? All right, so just getting content contributors to fill out that story of what's going on with that person. So faculty are very important in helping originate some of this feedback. Now, where does this pick up? This picks up for us then in our relationship management module. And the relationship management module is designed for advisors, folks who are in student services, faculty members, department chairs. It's really designed for who you say it's designed for. So I, Wendy, have individual pools of learners that, sorry, this timed out on me. Did that last time. I should have expected that. I have individual pools of learners over whom I have some stewardship and responsibility, and I am tracking against those students. So I have a pool here that I called at-risk students. And if I open up this pool of learners, I'll see some attributes. I have about 50 students that I'm tracking. And I can click here and see their individual profiles. I see their name. As I click on any one of them, at the bottom, I have some information. So I don't even have to click all the way into the student record to be able to grab their phone number and their email. What might I do when I engage these learners? Maybe I'd like to send my entire group an email. Maybe I'm going to be out of town for a period of time and I want them to know. I might contact all of them and send a group email. So let me just pause for a moment. I didn't have to create an email group in Outlook or whatever system that you use or anything like that. I click on my group, I click an email, and it sends that email. Moreover, every email, and indeed any piece of snail mail that I send out of this system, goes into a comprehensive history of what's gone on with the student. So anyone who looks at their profile can say, okay, Wendy sent this email then, Ted sent this email then. They got put into a campaign because of inability to pay their student holds here. So I get a real great view chronologically of what's going on with that student, okay? If I come back here for just a moment, let's explore a couple of different things. Remember those alerts that I was talking about, some of which originated in the faculty feedback form? Well, one of the things that I have done is I said, you know, I need to pay attention to what's going on with my pool of people. So any one of you could be teaching a learner that's on my watch list for a particular reason. So what I'm able to do here is I'm able to set some basically task lists for myself and say, any student who is in this watch list who has an interaction or something that's happened between a particular date, I want you to call that person to my attention. I'll go ahead and take a look at it over here in alerts, okay? So here, it's being called to my attention learners that are in my pool that have something going on with them. So what I'm trying to say is, this faculty comment doesn't just sit out there in the ether somewhere. That faculty comment turns into an attention item for someone else, all right? So if you are someone who works in the math lab and someone's been referred to you by an instructor, that kind of alert can be monitored. If you're in another area of student services, that kind of an alert can be monitored. I can click on a particular learner, open up that alert and see what's going on with that learner, and then work to resolve that, get them off of that watch list and move them on to the next step where they need to be, okay? All right, let's take a look at an individual student profile so we can see a little bit more information. We'll take a look at Barbara. Barbara's one of my learners that's been here for a while. She's had a couple of different major changes, been a little bit indecisive. And if I take a look, I can see different bits and pieces related to Barbara's engagement here. First thing I can see is her curricula history. And it's a little bit difficult to see, but she's changed programs a couple of different times, changed her study. And those of you who work with students know that this can really be a problem, right? So one of the things I'm excited about, some of the tools that the college has invested in is basically a degree plan where Barbara can go in and clearly see what her declared major is, which classes are required, which she has yet to take, and start to build out her plan for the future. There is nothing more irritating as a student than you need a plan, you need a class next term and it's not available. I'm a graduate student, so it's a little bit different. Some of my classes aren't offered but once every 2 years, which is really frustrating. I have 2 more classes to take after this semester, advanced statistics and political theory something. Well, the political theory 70-40 class is not offered. So I emailed my dissertation advisor and I said, what do you expect me to do, Thad? I can call him by his first name. And what am I supposed to do? You know, that was poor planning on my part, poor planning on their part, but now I have an issue. And now it's possible impediment to my completion. For our community college learners, oftentimes it's availability, right? It's not so much that it's not offered, but it has to do with availability. You have these degree plans out there, and people start putting in, I plan on taking this spring here, fall here, spring here, fall here. Now you know how to better build toward capacity, right? If you notice in spring of next year, you might need 2 more sections or 10 more sections of a particular English or math class. You don't have that information right now to be empowered because you don't even know what they're thinking and what they're planning. So with these tools, you know, the students can communicate to essentially the course planners, and the faculty members can be communicating with the staff and the other faculty members to make sure that everyone's working toward completion. In an advising capacity, I can also see information about where Barbara has registered. So in fall of 2011, I can see that she registered and she took a withdrawal for whatever reason. That's problematic in this econ class. And it looks like a couple of terms before that, she registered for a lot of classes. So, you know, obviously something is going on here. All of these tools, all of this rich content that resides in your student system is now presented in such a way that faculty, deans, department chairs, whomever you decide can take a look at this. I can also see her academic performance. I can see it in summary format. I can see it by term. I can see her credits by term. I can view her transfer credits if she came to us from another institution. I can view her alerts right here. Again, some of these can be manually put in by the staff. They don't have to originate from the faculty feedback form. And indeed, here's one that my colleague put in, a financial concern that was shared with, in this case, him. And if we take a look at this one, it looks like her father lost his job and she's worried she won't be able to return. So who in your organization can help mitigate these financial concerns? Is it financial aid? Is it a financial counselor? Well, who? Okay, now we know this information. What do we do about this? All right, so start perhaps thinking about this in a little bit different way now that you have these tools to alert you. I can add comments and add to this conversation, and we can work this case through resolution, and when we're done, go ahead and close that alert. So all important, you'll be able to track on every single one of these as we go throughout the process. Additionally, I have the ability to put people in campaigns. What is a campaign? A campaign is a series of events that happens in order to shepherd a behavior. So for example, let's say a student has a registration hold, whatever that particular hold might be. Failure to pay, a really irritating parking ticket that put a hold on my registration record, something of that sort. Regardless of what it is, I now have the ability to put those individuals who have registration holds into a campaign. And I'm trying to notify them of the hold and get them to resolve that hold. So I grab a population who has the hold, I send them a mass email. I wait a week or an indiscriminate period of time. Then I go into the database, I check the actual table where that hold lies to see if the status has changed. If I still have a hold on that record, I send it in one of the swim lanes. If that hold is resolved, I close that case and move on, okay? And my point here is to continually engage the learner until that hold is resolved. And every single one of these elements goes into their history. You'll know when they entered that campaign, when they got those communications, when that was resolved. So you're really helping to manage, so do some case management here. Additionally, I might host an event for midterm grade intervention. An excellent way to get students' attention, send them an email or other type of communication and say, we noticed that your grade point average has dropped to below 2.0 for midterm, and we'd like to help you. I was at a symposium a few years ago for student success where a banner client like yourselves, they hosted a major event on campus for Student Success Day. And they had all the resources lined up in a common area, the student center. They had financial resources, mental health resources, childcare, transportation issues, registration issues, to try and get all the professionals there on campus in one spot to help these learners. One of the things that they did, which I thought was brilliant, is they held some 9-week courses in abeyance because there are financial aid implications, right, if you drop a class and have to pick up another class. They also had a special set of classes for service learning, for just a one-time service learning element that you could pick up and do, just to make sure that that student had every resource that they possibly could to be successful. You're able to drive communications out of this particular system that will go into part of your campaigns, or otherwise you'll use them as just emailed or mailed communications. Here's one that we send out. We configured a little bit earlier for you to talk about the ed plan. You'll see that these are dynamic communications. They can have columns and graphics and digital signatures and links and so forth and so on. So all coming out of your new system. The last thing I just wanted to show before we go ahead and open this up to questions, which I think that you may have some questions. Get my browser back. As we think of now maybe a little bit of a mind shift, just because we have the tools to engage learners differently, think of the outcomes. You'll be able now to report a little better on things like student retention, matriculation rates, completion rates. Questions that you'll be able to answer: did they start in one college, or excuse me, one department and complete in another? Did they begin in one major and finish in a particular major, a different major? And why might that be? Also, tools for your academic leaders to be able to see what's going on with grade disbursement by a particular course, by a particular program. Are my transfer students performing equally or more poorly than my students who began their career here? And what do those type of measures tell us? And how do we need to perhaps readjust and reevaluate what we're doing with respect to curricula and perhaps other elements of the academic experience? So I'm really excited for you as you're going through some tough times, and it's not going to be horrible. But you know, there's always a little bit of pain and growth. Think bigger than the electronic stapler, and think of this as your end game, right? For your faculty, students, staff, and your alumni. That's you, Rick. Okay.
A quick show of hands. Who's feeling nervous, overwhelmed, concerned that they've got all this stuff in their head and we may not understand, we being the rest of the institution, may not understand, or that somehow they're going to not be trained correctly? Quick show of hands. Only 4 people, come on, liars. It's a big project. Don't be nervous, it's a big project. There's a structure in place. You've seen the ATAC committee, but below that there are several groups that will be communicating, and below that we're trying to set up a communication plan that is unique for our company, and hopefully it's going to be good for you, that sends out messages every week on what's happening. Here's something that is new for the institution, here's the impact, and here's how each of you will be impacted by these changes. And of course, training is the big thing, and we heard that loud and clear this morning, concern from classified staff about, are you going to put me in front of students? Are you going to put me in front of faculty with no training or improper training? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to work hard on making sure that everyone is trained adequately before the first student shows up for the first activity. So, questions?
Yeah, this is a very comprehensive system, very impressive. Will it replace systems that we have now? For instance, Kronos, would it possibly replace that program?
Yeah. Is that a
Is Maggie not in here, is she?
It's funny because in contract negotiations, your lawyer, who I'm amazed my arm still works, your lawyer kept on insisting we have an interface for Kronos, which we do. So that's the side. Now we also have web time entry, and it's up to the institution to decide what they want to do. The California community colleges I worked with all decided to go with web time entry just because you could use it with tablets and some other things where you couldn't with Kronos. So it's up to the institution, and I think that project starts in December. Yeah, what is it? I'm just curious. What is it vote? Is Kronos good or bad?
Very bad.
So it really doesn't matter then, does it? Old is bad, new is good, I guess.
So I'm just curious, then who's going to decide whether we're going to replace Chrono or implement Kronos? Because it should come from the users.
I agree. We agree, and that is part of what the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee is about. There are teams, and teams are made up of folks like yourselves and others that are involved in that process, and when we get to that piece of the functionality that needs to be implemented, we will go through the applications, not just Kronos, but other applications that we have that we've been using. The question is, do they have a feasible replacement that we've already acquired through Illusion and the Banner product, or is this something that, because it has other features and functions that maybe Banner doesn't have, that we may want to continue. So that process then will, that decision process will happen through, through this and through the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee. Yes?
And also too, it's just another comment is that, we don't mind changes. Just to give you a good example about Chronos. We don't really mind changes for me personally, okay? But the only thing that I have a problem with is the training process.
Exactly.
It was very difficult with the training process. And when we did have training, it was very, very basic. And among the areas, the area that I work with, I deal with a lot of student assistants. And whatever I learned from the training session was not enough. And afterwards, it was very difficult.
Excuse me, it was more than just the training. There was no infrastructure in place, and that made it almost impossible. I have 30 students working under me, and I had no infrastructure in my area. So that's also a concern of ours. We would like to be part of this process and give feedback, because it feels as if things happen on this campus and there is no feedback from the people who really are down in the trenches, who have to make this thing work on a day-to-day basis.
You are absolutely correct. And part of the new process that we have, that's a big part of what the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee is about. This is not like any other committee that has ever existed at the college. This group makes decisions, involve others in the respective areas as part of the process, so that when we make some decisions, things happen, because we're implementing every week. Something's happening every week. So as we go through this, we will have those types of evaluations. Understand too, you mentioned infrastructure. I think it's a good point you need to make. We also recognize, as part of another set of initiatives that's happening on the side, we know we have holes in our infrastructure. We have pipes that need to be much bigger than the current small pipes that we have, so that traffic, whether it's data from Banner and other applications, or video, or mobile wireless technology, all of that has to be fixed. So we're running that particular project in parallel as well, so that by the time some of these features and functions start becoming real, that infrastructure is there. We also know that your desktops, a number of your desktops are old. Okay, maybe not. No, we know. And part of what we have as a priority is to replace all of that as well. And so we're going through a process to try to get those in place as quickly as we possibly can.
And recall, we mentioned about mobile apps where we're doing lots of sharing among institutions. Please suggest, because we don't know, I don't know, and I've been doing this for a long time, what are the best apps that belong on a smartphone. So please, while you're going through the implementation, suggest mobile apps. You'll drive Ted crazy, that's what he gets paid for.
How does this interface, or does it, with Canvas, which our faculty are all living?
Good question. At the 11th hour of negotiations, we pulled out some products because the Canvas interface wasn't done from Canvas's side. They've got our source code on what they need to integrate with ours, and we're waiting to test that. So as soon as that's tested and put in production and is in, not in beta, but actually in full production, we'll roll it out to the institution. But we have every intention of doing Canvas through the portal, and Canvas through you saw the student success stuff.
And will faculty have to know how to use Canvas to use some of the access there? Because all of our faculty are not using it.
No.
No, they don't. So just the way that it works now is just with other learning management systems. Banner is the record of truth, and you would do your course scheduling, the registration all happens here, and then what the integration part is, it would automatically populate a Canvas instance. So you wouldn't have to create all those sections again in Canvas. That's what the integration does. Then typically the faculty member, not always, but submits grades in Canvas. Again, that would come automatically back into Banner, being direct truth. So that's how it works with our other learning management systems. So that's what we would anticipate that how it would work with Canvas.
We're actually in negotiations when you switch from Blackboard to Canvas. We had all Blackboard stuff ready to roll out.
Another point that I wanted to make too, that you mentioned training. Part of what we want to do, and our objective, is to video all of this training so that we can actually come back and make that accessible through our own web. So That's part of the process. So that even though you may have attended a training, or even this session here, all of this session, that would be available via video, and that folks can come back and look at any piece of that.
Or if you don't use it, you've forgotten about it after a month or two,
Right.
you always need to go back and look, make it part of the application.
Is there a question back there? Did you have one?
I had, I work for the Classified Senate, and if people think that they're left out of the committees, then we'll be happy to take your name and put you on committees. We put a call out about a month ago for people to make themselves available when we were setting up these committees. So call Carol Robinson at 3370 or send me an email, and I'll be happy to put you on the list.
But the difference here in this is that even if you're not on the committee, there are a lot of folks that will be involved on the project teams as part of implementation. It's going to ebb and flow as we implement new functionality. You may be on this team working on this particular piece, and then you're on another team, depending on what your area of responsibility is and how that ties into Banner.
Yeah, there are fewer of us on a lot of committees now, and I noticed some of the planning you've been doing has required like all-day attendance, and I just can't get on those committees. I hope that you'll make it something that's manageable for us, where we can be on a committee a little bit, or that you'll come to our area and see what we do. No one yet has come to the Learning Assistance Center, for instance, to find out what we do, what our systems are all about. And we have several, like the scanning system at the front desk and all kinds of things. I'm just asking that it be manageable because we're all very busy.
Right now, as Ted mentioned, the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee meets every week on Thursday, 1 hour. There's a lot to get done. There's a lot of communications to take place. But frankly, when you have all kinds of committees across the institution, we really have to find ways to just be as productive as we possibly can, because after the committee meeting is done, in the departments across the institution, there's work taking place. There's implementation happening that really isn't part of the committee. This is part of the behind the scenes that those who are on the committee have responsibility for going back and making sure things get done. Other questions? Yes, sir.
But working for Campus Police, we use a load of forms. Forms that are internal, forms that go out to the general public, such as like student travel forms and things like that. One of the things that we have a problem with is we're still shuffling paper around. So what I'd like to see an electronic version of student travel, electronic versions of other forms that we use internally and that go out to the general public, so that we can streamline all that and not print things out on paper anymore. And using just the scan features on the printers as kind of a start at doing that, but it still requires a lot more legwork for the user who has to fill out the form, and then the person who has to go back and then sit there and keep all of that in order. So I saw one of the slides talked about documents. I didn't know if that was particular what it was.
Document management, you may, in fact, Antonio will probably be getting together with you about what we can do online instead. Most campus security tends to go online with their information. For Family Education Rights Act is key to our system, so that might as well use it there. Makes sense.
But part of what we also notice too is that every department tends to set up their own processes for how they wish to do things. Let me just use an example between facilities and IT. You know, if somebody wishes to make a renovation to something or create a lab, well, you know, facilities has their own form for doing something. IT has their own form for doing something, and getting the two pieces together is not an easy thing. We have that across the institution. So part of our process here is to actually really look at all of these processes and map them and figure out how we can actually set up an integrated form or forms and make them all web accessible as opposed to, you know, a lot of paper.
How does this interface with our current website?
Current website, let's talk about that.
Don't you dare shut that mic off.
Our website right now, however embarrassing that it is, hey, I'm not going to mince words. We need to fix it. We need to redesign the website. We need to organize things a lot better. Part of our process is we're going to put a RFP out on the street to actually bring in an outside company to help us with the redesign, and there's also another RFP that's going to be helping us with the branding and those types of things. But we also need a content management solution so that we're not just so high maintenance in terms of putting content out there. We need content to be able to phase in and phase out automatically. Right now we don't have a system for doing that. And there's not a week that doesn't go by that I don't get a series of complaints about what people can or can't find with the web. But we know it's an issue and that it is a high priority for us to address it. Now, but to fully answer your question too, though, that's the web part of the institution. An important part which they went over was the portal piece. So that's the intranet aspect of that, and that we get started on that as fairly soon in terms of building it because it takes a little time. But then all of us as a family then go through the portal for finding things that we need and that'll all fit as part of the redesign effort as we go through it.
Just as another example, very often data that's already in the database can become a dynamically able component of the web page. So like the schedule of classes, that's dynamically searchable, it's real time. You can also choose to enable things like an employee directory so that when you as an employee make a telephone, on-campus telephone change or something like that, or you switch office, as soon as that's logged by HR, it's automatically updated into the employee directory as well. So some schools disable the employee directory, some schools enable it and really milk it for all it's worth. But there are elements that will directly connect to the web.
What is or what will be the composition or the representation on the stage pack?
I tell you what, we'll make sure it's on the web. You can look at it, and there's names, all the representation that's out there, and then I can certainly come back and answer more questions about it. We take obvious leads for, let's say, HR. That's our new executive director. You know, certain key leads in various areas are on point, and depending on the functionality being implemented, will include departmental staff both within HR and outside of HR that are involved in that particular part of functionality. So the teams themselves and what happens each week ebbs and flows as work needs to get done. I hope that helps, but I'll be more than glad to sit down with you and actually talk with you about the actual committee. It has student representatives, has 2 students, 2 faculty, 2 classified staff, and then there's the leads for all the respective areas. There's more than just 2 of those actually when you really start counting heads. Other questions?
Currently, I get a lot of phone calls from potential students because they'll go into our website and it says open classes, it'll say 3 spaces available, and yet when they try to register, it doesn't let them. They call me upset saying I'm having trouble, you know, they sign up, like I said, frustrated and irate sometimes. And then when I check the roster shows this full. Are they going to be synchronized to show that when it shows 3 spaces available, that there will actually be 3 spaces available?
Yeah, and if you choose to go into the waitlisting area, it'll show if there's classes closed, but the wait list is open, classes closed, and the wait list is closed. We'll definitely enable it so that you can search for just open classes or search for all classes. It's real time.
And it's real. which was your fundamental question? Right. Another.
Well, I wondered if the reporting capabilities of Banner would be directly tied into our accreditation and strategic planning.
That's big time. And in fact, one of the documents we had throughout the demos, throughout the demo prep, throughout the even contract negotiation was Education Master Plan, Student Success Task Force recommendations, and we actually have an office in Sacramento where we work with both the legislature and the board or governors and board governors office on what's coming down the pike, so we stay on top of that stuff, and that goes into our products. We have a full-time staff in San Diego. It does nothing but create a system just for the California community colleges. So this is our bread and butter. Put it press.
Anything else?
Does this take place of Chronos or Canvas at all?
Wow, that was the first question in the morning section. All right, so can I assume from that question that people don't like Chronos? We were asked when we were doing contract negotiation, can you interface to a Chronos? Of course we can. Lots of our institutions do. But we also have web time entry. And I also found out during the lunch break today they use Chronos for things that I didn't realize we were using it for. There's some other applications using student IDs for getting into math labs, study sessions, tutorials as well. So as we go through the discovery phase, we're going to discover whether you want to keep Chronos or not, or use some other technology.
What's that Canvas?
Canvas, oh yes, Canvas is part of our implementation. Right now, just so you know, there's two products that we offer, the whole interface integration to LMS. That plus the course signals were not approved by, or they were approved by the board, but they were not in our contract. We're waiting for Canvas to certify. We gave them a interface requirement, and we haven't received it back from them. As soon as we do, we'll certify it works, and then we'll roll it out to you.
So does that mean that Canvas will talk to this then?
Yes, so for example, if you have a chat capability in Canvas, it's all in one place. The student adds, and it's a Canvas course, it automatically happens. You don't have to have a separate sign-on. If you do grading through Canvas, it shows up in the gradebook and banner as well, all integrated.
I know there's a lot of community colleges in California. Is your chancellor's office using it? And does that mean that our reports for like CTE students will directly go to the chancellor's office?
We do all state reports, yes, all of them. So, yeah, we have we didn't mention this, we have a group of people in our San Diego office who do nothing but create and maintain a special version of the banner system just for the California community colleges. So there's 10 folks down there, and they actually, and we also have an office in Sacramento that does nothing but track new legislation and new regs coming out of the state chancellor's office. So a lot of times we have solutions done before it goes to the rest of the institutions because they use our, I mean, with 82% of the clients up there, they use a skinny big solver. So we continue to do that. So on the other hand side.
Other questions?
You're a much better audience. They asked us 20 minutes worth of questions.
Will we be getting rid of the escape system or requisition?
Yes. All that. Second that.
How is it anticipated that newly admitted students learn this program? Is there going to be a new department set up to just gather them in as they come into the college?
Yes. So his question is, how will new students learn?
This system.
It's self-service. If you have to train students how to use it, you've messed up.
You've got a problem.
You got a big problem. A lot of institutions, what they do is they actually put out, they don't publish the web, the URL, they just let it leak out. And before you're long, you have like 100 students going into it and then 200 students. And that's a way of testing those things. But you should never have to train a student how to use self-service or a mobile app if you haven't designed it correctly. Shame on us if that's the case.
We have an increasing international base. Will the system convert to their language or?
We support how many languages right now?
I'm not sure.
Hundreds of languages we support right now. We're an international company. And they can choose which user interface. Now that doesn't mean we support, if they put in a major called psychology, it won't be psychology in Spanish or German or Croatian. But the headers on all the screens will be Croatian if that's the language of choice. That's one of the things that was in your educational master plan that we stressed during the proposal and contract phase about supporting this international education. Yes?
How will we be able to share information from other junior colleges? For example, I work in a assessment office. And many times students come in and say, well, the assessment test at Cerritos or not SAT.
That's the goal with the new assessment stuff that's coming out of the state chancellor's office, and I don't know time-wise, because it was optional for each college whether they wanted to adopt that, as I understood it. So I don't know if it's this year, next year, or the year after that, that people will be able to share. It belongs to the student, and the student is willing to self-service, allow the institution to send it somewhere, just like a transcript. I didn't see a problem with it. Technically, I don't see a problem with it. I see more of a problem with the institutions all agreeing. And I haven't been tracking assessment, so I apologize.
So the students that have a balance, they're going to be referred to student council for financial aid.
It's their choice. If they're a financial aid student and have a loan and drop below 3/4 time, where's Campus Star here somewhere? Things like that. It depends on the source. Do we give students money back if it was institutional money? No. If they paid it, yes. The system's smart enough to know. So it really depends how the and if it was a credit card, we send it back to the credit card. We don't give it to student cash in the case. So it's smart enough to know the source of funds for all transactions. Did that answer? I'm not a finance person either.
I was trying to figure out the financial aid at one point. It's going to be separation of duties where the student council takes care of all the student accounts and not financial aid. That's what I was getting at. The separation of duties.
Well, you're all integrated, so really, I suspect it is a governance issue, yeah, process issue, and you would hope it would be mostly online, so the student wouldn't even have to check. They wouldn't know.
There are going to be a lot of those types of situations where we have to really look at how the processes that we're using today and what would be considered better practices and how we look to build those in manner as part of the process. So we got a lot of that. Other questions? Yes.
This is maybe for the student. What's the accessibility like screen reading or students who've got like visual impairments?
Yeah, it's
accessible.
all of the web pages are screen reader enabled, so that if they, if they're visually impaired, it reads off, and basically that's one of the elements that's tested before it's pushed out to the client. So that's not even really a California thing; it's just international. They're all screen reader enabled.
I think most of these folks just.
Who's going to decide who gets training for what? I work at grants and I pay invoices, I track budgets, so I'm involved with fiscal services. I do requisitions for multiple areas in the college that have grant funds awarded to them, so I work with purchasing. I also have Chronos. Who's going to decide that who gets trained for each area? Because I'm working with all of these different areas and I want to make sure that my part of the area that I work with, budget transfers and all of that, that I know how to do that, and it's not just the people that are in fiscal services that know it, it's the people that work with them.
Part of the strategy that we're going to follow with respect to training is we really want to try to video as much as we can. We're not like sending folks off to places. Like 2 weeks ago when we had the 3CBG banner group conference, there were 16 folks that went to, or was it Wayne Park? This is how we have parts of our training that get delivered. That way folks can go to local areas, they can actually attend a lot of these workshops. I think a good bit of this too is going to be in your relationship with your colleagues at other institutions in terms of how they do the things that they do and who's doing what. As we begin to look at our processes and move things around and figure out how that's going to become a lot more streamlined, then maybe then we can look at who addresses what types of training. But we are going to try to video as much as we can so that it can be web accessible.
We understand with a tightly integrated system that it's not siloed based. You can't say accounts receivable just gets accounts receivable training and that's it. Financial aid impacts it, student registration impacts it, counseling might impact it. So we understand that that's going to happen. And you've got a committee structure that's starting to be formed that should take that in consideration. So in the case of registration, you've got people in accounts receivable and finance, even human resources if you have tuition remission process. So that is yet to be decided on who gets involved, but it is cross campus on all of these models.
Part of what we hope that happens too, that over time there become key leads in each area that actually conduct workshops for the college community in terms of certain topics. It could be a requisition processing, it could be, you know, anything like that, and there becomes the lead for that area that would actually conduct the training. And we would also try to video that as much as we can. So we're really going to try to leverage the technology in the training aspect as we move forward. But over time, all the areas of the institution develop their areas of expertise, and they are part of then how we train the rest of the college. Yes?
How about international student information management? Does the software provide the management of international student information like enrollment, demographic information?
That's all captured. So let me make sure I understand the question. How you support international students in general? Well, all of our institutions have a good number of international students. There are components within the system that pulls that information, including visa number and all that good stuff. And then, of course, you saw the FSA Atlas, which is an application that does all the federal reporting for international students as well. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we have the capability of doing multiple languages. There's that option as well. I have one client right now that is offering total immersion in English, but all their students are non-English speaking students. And their entire system didn't have to be tweaked at all. They just switched on the language for that particular language or that particular nation, and their system was supporting those students. Same, yeah, it's also in HR, we do that.
There's also pages to track student visa status as well, and federally required documents. And one of the things we didn't showcase here, but you have invested in document management, so you'll be able to take a digital asset, an image of those particular documents, whatever H-1B visa or whatever they might happen to be, and attach those to the student record. The other thing that we have done in Banner is we have used, this is way out of my scope of understanding, but basically we changed the fields so that they're more international friendly. So the whole construct of some Asian names, first name, last name, first name, also to take foreign characters as well. So everything does not have to be in English. Also understanding that postcode and just the dynamics of addresses. So this system has been made international friendly. I almost said internationalized, but I don't think that's what it is. So, did you have anything else to add, Antonio, about international students?
Well, I can just go into more detail, but basically, so like a lot of times in different countries, they capture addresses in a very different way. We're used to, in the States, you know, you've got the street one and the city and the zip code and the state, and we never bother capturing the fact that they live in the United States because they live in California. But a lot of other countries have different address formats, so they have the house number, street 1 and 2. They don't really use zip codes, but they have a postal value type of thing, and so that the addresses can be made into a generic style so that it can be captured by the different formats from the different countries. So there's definitely support for the, and it is internationalization. Often abbreviated I-18N, something like that. So it's there.
When you mentioned that they also provide federal reports, are you talking about the civics batching system?
Yeah, that's all part of FSA Atlas. FSA Atlas feeds through CBIS.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have two questions. One of the international students, I work at the health center, and one of the students, they have their health insurance coverage. Would that be something that they could access through Banner, or does that need to be separate? Because I know a lot of times they have problems trying to access their card. So would that be something that might be used here?
So is the problem they have you require health insurance for international students, right? When a student is an international student, there's a whole funnel of documents they need that's different from a student from Whittier. Okay, so if that particular document isn't in, it's a red flag, and that student really wouldn't be ready to register at the time. In fact, they wouldn't even get their visa. So the system tracks all of the international required documents, including health insurance.
And those documents would be scanned, and those scanned documents would be available to you. You could pull it up and say, oh, you don't have a copy of your card? I can pull it up right here and see here's your policy number. Right?
Yeah, because a lot of times, you know, they either move or they don't have, you know, their card goes to a different address, and then they need to go to a hospital or something, they don't have a, you know, so we have really helpful.
And when we say scan, they may choose to fax it in, and that fax happens to be part of the document management system. So it sits there automatically.
And then my other question is, we also have minors that, you know, attend PCC. Would their minor consents be in the banner?
It's a different admissions process, or their admissions type, and it sets up different requirements in this case, the extra document. Or if they're attending high school and college at the same time.
That's all part of the sort of the paperless approach, is that anything right now, if you have this piece of paper that you're tracking because it has all the information on it you need, the idea is that that piece of paper gets scanned and becomes associated digitally to that person's record in the system. And then you really don't need to have a paper folder for that individual because you can pull up their record in the system and you can say, oh, let's see what documents are attached. There's the minor consent form right there. Same thing with like your high school students, the form from the high school counselor or president or the parent. What classes they're taking, that's all part of the same concept, paperless.
Yes.
Is there going to be a bridge program to take information out of the legacy and put it into, so there'll be conversion of student information, and will the ID configuration change? Student ID?
We don't know yet. There will be an ID system in Colorado in Banner, but we don't know what. You can have unlimited IDs. I mean, I still get called up on my own social security number because when I went to school, they used social security number. Sure enough, that school which had Banner, I keyed in my social security number and my record came up, much to my chagrin. Yes.
In light of what happened this morning when we had this partial system crash, how often are your statistics that your system does not crash?
No, I didn't, but I knew about it. I was going to make a comment during my Santa Rosa statement, but yes. I mean, these are all brand new systems. Please understand that our existing systems that we have today are certainly near 30 years old, and we actually had to reset this morning, right before this meeting, I think, reset the system, and it did come back up. And but the new systems are all new systems, okay, and they should have very, very high level of performance. So we're very excited about getting some of these new systems in place.
At our user conference, I routinely ask the question, who has been down for more than 2 minutes the past year? People all look around, they don't remember. That's what you should expect. We're running under a technology that banks and businesses and corporations all use. It's pretty rock solid stuff.
It is.
Bring that up.
You're welcome.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I have umpteen subfolders in my mail, in my email. Will all of that be automatically moved into the new email system? Because I do that instead of writing paper for everything for auditors that come in.
Your Outlook?
Pardon me?
You're using Outlook right now?
Yes.
Won't change. You're still using Outlook.
Okay.
Zero change.
We'd like not to address that training issue. All right, other questions? All right, I guess it's iPad time. All right.
Got your tickets?
Shake it, shake it, shake it.
Blame Dwayne if you don't get called.
Mine. 3279. I heard the same thing myself.
Someone that got it after us.
Is 327914 here? Let's see it. That's too bad. So sorry. All right. 327888.
We have a third one we're going to give away.
Well, one of the things that that I mentioned earlier is that we call our current system the Santa Rosa system, however good or bad that is. But we want to come up with a name for this as well, and so we're going to run a contest. We're letting that actually be handled by Juan Gutierrez's office in public relations, and so we're going to go through that process. There'll be another iPad available for the individual that comes up with the right name that gets chosen. Okay, so that's coming out. Should be done in the next 2 weeks. We want to try to solidify a name fairly quickly and then move on. So that's the third iPad. Well, I want to thank Lucian for all the iPads.